Do we regret buying a massive ex-military truck?
We have owned this Deuce and a Half for some time now. We've put some miles on it, and here are the top 5 love and hate things that we've learned about this Deuce and a Half.
The number 5 thing that we love about this truck is the price. We bought this from a company called Boyce that's based out of Utah, and they will kit out these Deuce and a Halves any way that you want them to, and they sell for usually between $40,000 and $50,000.
And when you consider the fact that this truck has been gone through, it's restored, it's fully road legal, $40,000 to $50,000 in 2025 money will get you a pretty good Toyota Tacoma or 13,000 pounds of diesel-powered beast. So I think it's pretty good value, actually.
Our number 4 favorite thing about this truck is the way that we have it spec'd out. And there are several different versions of the Deuce and a Half that you can have Boyce kit out with a lot of different features, like air conditioning that we have here in the cab, which makes it significantly more comfortable. And the specific Deuce that we've got also has an automatic transmission, which means everybody at the office is able to drive it. Now, Tommy, the number 3 like with this truck is the experience of driving it. From the moment you kick on that big diesel under the hood to the second that you actually start cruising it around and driving it, it feels like we're driving in a building.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe it. It's like piloting a set of condos across pretty much any kind of terrain you could imagine. Now let's talk about this engine. So it made right around 180 horsepower. It's of course an inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel, and that sound is just legendary, Kase.
It's pretty good, Tommy. And looking out over the hood of the Deuce that we've called the General Giant is insane. There's no other seating position in any vehicle that looks or feels the way this looks and feels.
Now, Kase, would you describe this as a hard machine to drive?
No, it's pretty easy, and that's part of the reason that we spec this vehicle the way that we did, because some of our videographers at the office don't drive manual. This one is an automatic, so everybody employed at our company can get behind the wheel of this and drive it. I think you and I would have enjoyed getting an older Deuce that would have had a manual, but it would have limited the scope of who could drive it.
100%, yeah. And you know, it's kind of nice too if you're, not that you'd want to drive this through a big city, but if you lived in an area where there's stop signs and stoplights, just being able to stick that thing in a drive, it's just super convenient.
So it is. It's pretty easy to drive, so long as you can keep a couple brain cells focused on where the corners of the vehicles are.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it is it looks massive, and it is massive in some dimensions, which we'll talk about, but from an actual width and length standpoint, it's not much bigger than like a long bed dually.
That's true, but long bed dualies are already pretty big.
Yeah, that's a good point. And look, what's also nice about this is you've got kind of enough creature comforts in here where if it's hot like today, right, you kick on the AC, you roll up this window so you shut up the exhaust a little bit, and it's not miserable.
Plus, you can also kick the windshield out and get some extra fresh air.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Now, a lot of people wondered why we bought the Bob version where they shortened them when you can get the full 6-wheel one. What's the reason there?
So, for one, the look. We love the way that these Bob Deuces look. Not that they aren't cool with 6 wheels, but having 4 46-inch tires looks pretty rad. And it should help a little bit with maneuverability, long-term service. So there were a few reasons, those included, that we went for it. And I think it turned out pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just the coolest thing to pilot down the road. Number 2 is the sheer space that a Deuce and a Half offers. Now, one of the things Boyce does is they'll actually bob and shorten a Deuce and a Half, as they've done with this truck. And that means they go from a 6-wheel truck to a 4-wheel truck, and then they install this actually started out life as a utility trailer onto the back of these as a bed. Now, this is approximately a 9-foot bed, and you can pretty much carry whatever you want, wherever you want it, as long as you don't have to get there faster than about 50 miles an hour. But there's a lot of useful space back here, and I've even seen guys turn these into super rad campers. So this is kind of like a basis for a great build out.
But by a long shot, the number one favorite thing from everybody at the office about this truck is the way that it looks. It is massive. It is like the coolest toy that you could buy as a somewhat adult-ish male. So we love the truck, we love the way it looks, and not only does it look rugged, but we've got 46-inch tires, a rear locker, and tons, endless really, ground clearance, which means we can take this, and we will take this, on some pretty serious trails.
Now listen, as cool as this truck is, over the past month we have found some perhaps drawbacks of living and owning a Deuce and a Half, even one as cool as this. So here are 5 things we dislike about this truck.
For our number 5 dislike of the truck, as Tommy pointed out, we've got a massive bed, so you could throw tons of stuff back here, even like he said, build out your own camping setup. The only issue is, bed's maybe 5 feet off the ground, so actually getting your things into the bed can be a little bit of a challenge.
Number 4 is the serviceability of this truck. Now, from talking to the guys at Boyce and then talking to the fine men and women who have served the U.S. Army and have worked on these, they're pretty simple to work on. They're actually very basic machines, but you do have to go through some hoops to actually work on them. So for example, if I want to access this Caterpillar engine, I really got to do it from up here on the fender, and kind of getting the engine open in some ways is a 2-person job. Now Kase, if you want to go kind of hop on over to the front there and pull the little hatch. See if we can go ahead and lift this up. Oh, there we go. So once you are up here, you kind of service the engine by getting into it rather than examining it, you know, from the bottom. Now this engine is a Caterpillar 3116. This is an engine that they used in other applications, medium duty applications, like school buses, and apparently they're pretty robust. And if you want more simplicity in your Deuce and a Half, you can actually get an older version. This is called an A3, but they also did an M35A2, and the A2 gave you a manual transmission and a slightly different engine with a turbo called the Whistler, because it just makes insane sounds. But apparently pretty easy to keep going. They do have some complexities like air-assisted brakes, but accessing some of this stuff is a little tough, and everything is very huge and very heavy, so you might want a little bit more muscle than squirrel and gerbil here. Now listen, as much as I love cruising around in this Deuce and a Half, there are a couple of things that you should probably know before committing to own one from a drivability standpoint.
That's true. The biggest one being speed, which is going to limit your usability with this truck in a big way. So, for example, I'm not going to go top speed because that's 50 miles an hour and we're in the dirt here. But I'll go ahead and give it some throttle. It's not the fastest accelerating thing, but that's not really the biggest issue. It's the gearing, really. The top speed on this is not much more than 50 miles an hour, and when you're at that speed, it is screaming at you the entire time.
So this transmission, I believe it's an Allison, it's only a 4-speed, right? So the power, like you said, acceleration is not terrible, but it really doesn't have the top end gearing for interstate travel. And I know in Convoy, I think they run these things about 40, 45. With the bigger tires on it, you can kind of stretch that to 50, but really 55 is all she's got.
Pretty much. So you're not going to be doing a lot of long trips in this. Around town is the best.
The other thing I want to point out too is about this exhaust placement. Now this has a stack right here by the A-pillar, which looks freaking awesome. It also means that you really want ear protection if you're going to be taking this thing out on the real road.
That and the clatter from the engine itself, which is also a large portion of the noise we're hearing. It's loud any drive longer than a half hour. I'd recommend having your earplugs with you.
Yeah, right. Especially when you crank up this AC unit. I mean, it's just a cacophony of sound.
Yeah, it makes it a hell of a place to film, right, Tommy?
It's pretty tough, and I know, like...
What?
what? Huh? I know that, like, when we first bought this, I was kind of bummed we didn't get, like, a radio option. I'm not sure how much you'd be able to hear out of a radio.
The last thing this cab needs is more noise, Tommy.
It's kind of all noise.
We're kind of maxed out on sound.
The one thing I will say is I did have some friends in this thing on the 4th of July. I stuck them in the bed, and they were totally 100% comfortable. Put some pads down. It was perfectly quiet. It was actually pretty smooth. So the storage area is actually more comfortable than in the cab.
That might be true. Our number 2 dislike on this truck is the size of it. And I know it doesn't necessarily make sense because that's part of what we love about this truck and part of what makes it cool. But because of the size of it, limits its usefulness at times. There's not that many places you're probably going to want to take this out to and park it at. And even for storing it on your property, unless you've got a sizable, basically RV garage, you're probably not going to be keeping it indoors either.
And number 1 is something I'm going to call the spouse sellability factor, because this thing is objectively badass. It is super awesome. I do genuinely think it's pretty good value for just how much truck you get. However, it would be a tough sell to someone like maybe my wife if I wanted to own this personally, because as cool as it is, it's also very loud and very compromised from an on-road standpoint. So without some more modifications like moving that exhaust maybe out back, it would be tough to, I think, convince her to want to go on a little bit of a cruise in this truck, if you know what I mean, on a Saturday night. So it's very rough and rugged, but it is, as Kase mentioned, the biggest toy in the toy box, but at the end of the day, it is still very much a toy. I think after living with this, we've learned that it's really not a replacement to like a standard HD pickup truck for most people, unless you've got a really cool family and you don't have kids or the need for back seats, or you've got really bad ears, or you really hate the radio, or you really don't mind doing 52 miles an hour. My point, or you never have to park it anywhere, right? Or if you're good with 8 miles to the gallon, like there are things that it's not great at, right? So Kase, what do we think? A few weeks in owning this thing, good purchase, bad purchase, where do you fall on this?
It's a great purchase because we're not the typical buyer. We shoot videos about vehicles, and as a video car, video truck, whatever you want to call it, a movie vehicle, essentially, this is perfect.
Now what about, let's say hypothetically, you lived on some land, right? And you had 50 grand to play with. Is this something you would consider, or would you go for something maybe a little bit more practical?
I'm generally wildly impractical, so I would try and find a way to justify spending the money on it, because if you have property and you have a place where you can store it, which is a big if you have that, then it's a pretty spectacular thing to have around, even if you don't use it that much. Just walking up to this on your property, in your garage, in your driveway is spectacular.
And just one more time, reiterate it, right? We've got our friend Jay Couch, who has Couch Unimogs, and he does these insane Unimog builds, which are just the coolest things on the planet. But you could realistically get 9 or 10 of these for the price of a Couch Unimog. So I know it's an expensive toy, but if you're playing in that sandbox, it's actually pretty good value.
It's pretty cool to us, but let us know what you all think in the comments below. Are we crazy for criticizing this truck for not being drivable, or are we crazy for buying it in the first place?
We'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching. Head over to oldtfl.com.